It's a new season of the Liz Wheeler Show. What this show won't be: boring, old, ineffectual commentary. Go tune into Fox if you want the generic political yammering that got us into this mess. Small assumptions allow big lies. So the Liz Wheeler Show will challenge everything. On this show, it's be based or our country dies. What does it mean to be based? Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Liz Wheeler Show. There are basically three things I was looking for from the presidential debate last night between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I was looking at Donald Trump's performance. I was looking at Kamala Harris's performance. And yes, I was looking at the moderators, the fairness of the debate, if you will. So what we're going to do on the show today is I'm going to show you the top 5 moments from the debate and how they impact the rest of the race. What are we, 55 days from Election Day? Although we are already into election season, at least in the eyes of the Democrats here. So we're going to talk about exactly what this debate means and what went wrong for Trump, what went right for Trump, what went wrong for Kamala, and what went right for her. Before we get into all of that, I do want to say I found it particularly chilling to see the ease that Kamala Harris told such blatant and malicious lies against Donald Trump. That's actually the number one takeaway that I have from this debate. This woman is soulless. No, she didn't talk about policy. She didn't even release a policy platform until she copied and pasted Joe Biden's policy platform a day and a half before the debate because online people demanded it. It doesn't matter because the left likes to talk about the character of Donald Trump. Let's talk about the character of Kamala Harris. To be able to look at us without flinching, without a blink, without her pupils dilating, without getting nervous, and saying these things that are just demonstrably, provably untrue. Do you know what that says to me? She doesn't just hate Donald Trump. She wasn't just sneering and laughing and mocking Donald Trump because she hates him personally. In fact, it was kind of weird. She introduced herself to Donald Trump at the beginning of the debate. They'd never actually met before. She goes, "Hi, I'm Kamala Harris." Very weird moment, I thought. She doesn't feel this way about Donald Trump just because he's Donald Trump. She feels that way about us. This is how she perceives our pain. The pain that we feel because we're paying more for groceries and for gas, and we're worried about crime in our cities and an open border and war in Ukraine. She laughs. She doesn't care. She rolls her eyes. She mocks. She sneers because she feels disdain for us. Such disdain that she would lie to our faces. So I don't want to get into all of it before we get to some of these clips. We're also going to talk about Congressman Chip Roy of Texas released an explosive 36-page report on the devastating, truly devastating effects of the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden administration's open border policies. The numbers in this report are staggering. We're going to break that down in just a moment. Plus, we're going to look at some of the craziest migrant crime headlines from just this past week. And of course, we'll be rounding out the show by reacting to some of the most eye-opening videos making the rounds on the web right now. And guys, if you watched our debate coverage last night, we so appreciate each and every one of you for joining us on blazetv.com. But if you haven't already become a member of this tribe, this community, this experiment that we are undertaking here at The Blaze, take a moment and do that now. Go to blazetv.com/Liz. If you use the promo code Liz40 for a very limited time, you can get $40 off your annual subscription. We would love to have you a part of this. When I say I had a blast last night during debate coverage, yes, some of the moments of the debate itself were painful. That's what we're going to talk about today. But the experience of being able to be part of this movement here at The Blaze and this moment in history, what's happening in our country, everything that's riding on this election, I invite you to join us. Go to blazetv.com/Liz. Use promo code Liz40. All right, let's start the show with a prayer. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits who prowl through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. One of our sponsors for the show today is one of my personal favorites. My husband and I actually have this in our basement right now. I checked with my husband after Kamala Harris proposed those price controls on food that clearly would cause a food shortage in our country. I say to my husband, we have food storage, right? And he goes, of course we do. We have 2 pallets of My Patriot Supply in our basement. I'm like, oh, great. And they're one of our sponsors. So super happy to have them as one of our sponsors. We have the 4-week emergency food kit. I highly recommend you get the same. It's everything that my family or your family might need during a crisis. It's over 2,000 calories per day. There's enough to go around, let's just say, in the case of social unrest, government crackdowns, or God forbid, an attack on our homeland. The food lasts up to 25 years, ready whenever disaster may strike. We have seen mass panic in our lifetimes. We've already experienced this. Some of these mass panics were not that long ago. I am not going to take my family's safety for granted in these chaotic times. Are you? That's the question. Right now, you can get $50 off of the same 4-week emergency food kit that I keep in my home. Go to preparewithliz.com. You can save $50 on your 4-week emergency food kit. And My Patriot Supply will send it over as fast as humanly possible. Trust me, I know, because my order showed up in 1 day. And it shipped for free, too. Get your 4-week emergency food kit now. Go to preparewithliz.com. That's preparewithliz.com. It's the anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks on our country. And I had a thought that I wanted to share about this day. It's a time of reflection for our country. It's a time to revisit the grief that we felt on that day. But I had an additional thought that I want to share with you in just a second. I want to talk about one other sponsor, American Heart for Gold. Again, so grateful for these companies that stand beside us in this fight for our families and for our freedoms. In all the time that we have been alive, we have been able to count on for ourselves and our families that the US dollar would be there, that it was worth something, that it had value. It's fiat currency, but it still had value, right? I no longer feel that confidence. You probably feel the same way. The US dollar is now facing this inflation thanks to Kamala and Biden. Our politics is getting increasingly unstable. That was very clear on the stage last night. And if that wasn't scary enough, the government is now looking to take control of our finances by proposing a new digital dollar, which obviously government bureaucrats will control, and they will control us through this digital dollar. Do not let your life savings, your money, your freedom become a casualty of failing banks or these currency wars. Now is the time to call the only precious metals dealer that I trust, American Heart for Gold. They'll show you how to protect your savings, protect your money, protect your freedom by diversifying your wealth portfolio with physical gold and silver. American Heart for Gold, remember, supports content like this that is committed to bringing you the truth. Tell them I sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. Call them now. You can click the link in the description of this episode, or you can call 866-996-5172. That's 866-996-5172, or you can text Liz to 998899. Again, the phone number is 866-996-5172, or text Liz to 998899. Okay, the anniversary of September 11th, 2001 is today, and it makes a lot of us reflective. The things that have been in my mind during the course of this morning and early afternoon are a couple of things. First of all, it is kind of rattling, even to this day, to remember the feelings that we felt on that day, because our country so often feels invincible. And that was such, not just a reminder, but it was such a literal invasion of our safety and security. And to remember now, even 23 years later, that there are people around the world who hate us enough that they are willing to plot and kill us on our homeland is something that we shouldn't forget just because we live in a very prosperous, generally secure nation, especially with the border crisis and all of the, there's an ISIS-related trafficking cell. This radical Islamic threat is not vanquished. It's not gone. It hasn't disappeared just because we have other chaotic issues that we are facing in our nation. It's still there. And I feel like we have forgotten that, and that by forgetting that, our country could be in danger of an attack like September 11th again. The other thing that I find to be heartening as an American, and I do this every anniversary of November 11th, is to listen to the tapes of the incredibly courageous men and women who lost their lives on that day on these flights, who, when they realized what had happened, that they had been hijacked by terrorists, that these terrorists intended to fly these jetliners into targets. They probably didn't know it was the World Trade Centers or the Pentagon. but that when they realized they were going to die at the hands of these terrorists, they wanted on behalf of our country, even though they themselves couldn't do anything to save their own lives, they wanted on behalf of our country, you and me, to do something to lessen the severity of that attack. And I actually get the chills even thinking about 9/11 in this context, because patriotism is so often castigated in this day and age. Oh, you're a patriot. You must be a violent extremist. You're a patriot. You must be a radical. You're a patriot. You must be an insurrectionist. No, real patriotism is, even when your own life is on the line, caring more about your country and your fellow countrymen than yourself. And that was evidenced by that day. My third reflection is not quite as positive. And what I mean by that is September 11th, 2001 was a turning point in our nation that has actually led us to the point where we find ourselves today, where we don't trust our government institutions, where the deep state has such control over our lives, where big government has become Big Brother on steroids. That actually started, or at least was significantly, exponentially exacerbated after September 11th. It was the fear of being victim of another such attack like that day that allowed us to say, okay, when Bush started the Department of Homeland Security, to say, well, I guess it's necessary when Congress passed the Patriot Act. All this snooping, all this censorship, this control, actually, again, I don't want to say started, but exponentially was exacerbated by 9/11. It was a turning point in our country for how the government controls the flow of information and us. And that might be an aspect of 9/11 that is not often reflected upon, because it is much easier and better to reflect on the courage of the people that our fellow countrymen who were so tragically killed that day. But those are just my thoughts. You can let me know in the comments what you're thinking. I mean, I know it's an exercise we all take part in. Where were you on 9/11? What do you remember about it? And you can share your stories with me. I'd like to read them. I like to read them every year. But let's talk about the debate. So a couple of takeaways from this debate. The way that I was looking at this is I was like, okay, Trump has an agenda. He has his goals that he's trying to achieve. So his performance, and we'll analyze that. Kamala had her goals that she wanted to achieve through her performance. We'll analyze that. And then, of course, we can't ignore the moderators. I would like to ignore the moderators, actually. I don't like being one of those people that's like, oh, it was biased. It was so unfair. They were so against Trump. It's a very high bar for me to start complaining about bias in a debate, because I so dislike the idea of complaining about that. But you couldn't ignore it last night. You couldn't ignore the fact that it was 3-on-1. It was the two ABC moderators, particularly David Muir, against Donald Trump in this egregiously unfair. I mean, they fact-checked him, quote unquote, fact-checked him. How many times interrupting him compared to 0 for Kamala Harris, who was up there brazenly lying the whole time? It was unfair. It was brave of Trump, by the way, to go up there because he knew that it was going to be biased. It took courage of him to accept that debate knowing that it was going to be so biased. Now, here's what I will say. I was disappointed in Trump's performance because I know that he can do better than that. When I say I'm disappointed, it's because I've seen him be so on point with talking points, just crushing his opponent with a question. And I wanted him to do that last night to Kamala Harris, because when you're up on a debate stage, remember, your goal is not actually to change the other person's mind or to defeat them personally. It's to demonstrate to the American people that the other person isn't worthy of being the president. And it's actually two different mindsets. And politicians who fall into the trap of trying to just one-on-one battle with the other candidate often lose. It's candidates who are sort of ignoring their opponent in favor of just making their case to the American people that win. Donald Trump didn't do that as well last night as he sometimes does. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris did. So I was disappointed. I had said before the debate, I wanted Donald Trump. It was his to lose because he has the advantage of he's right on every single policy issue that's facing our country. And I don't say that because I'm biased towards his political party. Yes, I'm Republican. Yes, I'm conservative. So is Donald Trump. But I don't say that just because I happen to agree with most of Donald Trump's policy standpoints. I say that because the majority of the American people agree with Donald Trump's policy stances, and I really wanted him to highlight that. It would have been so easy for him to highlight that. When Kamala Harris said things like, I'm going to be tough on our border, he should have said, well, what does that mean, Kamala? Because you've been in the White House for 3.5, almost 4 years. In the meantime, at least, and this is a very conservative estimate from Congressman Chip Roy's report, which we're going to talk about in a minute, at least 8.6 million illegal aliens have crossed the border under your tenure. And that has led to the murder of people like Laken Riley, young women who were just assaulted by illegal aliens who'd been deported before and come back again. A random attack in the park. Our cities are being overrun by migrants. We have the FBI terror watch list identified 400 would-be potential suspected terrorists that cross their border, 50 of whom are at large in our country right now. Donald Trump should have looked at Kamala Harris and said, where are they? What do you think they're doing? Do you think it's safe and secure for them to be at large in our country? I wanted him to do this on every single issue, and I didn't think that he did. Kamala Harris did exactly what I predicted that she would do. She came out and acted like a prosecutor. She had a very disciplined strategy that she employed against Donald Trump. She tried to get his goat. She tried to trigger him. She tried to needle him personally and get under his skin. And we know that that is Donald Trump's weakness. And it was on display last night. He let her get his goat. He let himself become triggered, and it made his demeanor angrier than most people wanted to see. He's a funny guy. He's a good communicator, but when he's a little rattled or disgruntled, he comes off as a little more irritable. And I don't think that was his best look. I think that he let himself get triggered by Kamala Harris, and that was not the best thing. But Kamala's strategy was twofold: to rattle Donald Trump and trigger him, and to tell blatant, brazen, even evil lies about him. And she knew she could do this. Why? Well, this circles back to the first thing, the bias of the moderator. She knew that she could tell those lies because she can count on ABC and every other. It's not just ABC. They were the ones sitting in the chairs that night. But every other mainstream media is never going to fact check her. They're never going to say, well, wait a second, Kamala Harris, you're telling lies like these lies. I think we have this as a video. Tim, can you bring up the video of Kamala lying about Charlottesville on January 6th? We're going to bring this one up because look at Kamala Harris's face when she's speaking these words. Look at her eyes.
It's not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back.
Look at her eyes. She was looking you in the eyes, telling lies so blatant that even Snopes debunked it. Snopes said, Donald Trump didn't call neo-Nazis very fine people. Donald Trump said on the debate over whether statues of Confederate figures should be torn down or left up, there are very fine people on both sides of that debate. Even Snopes, a notoriously left-wing organization, said that what Kamala Harris was propagating was a lie. And she thinks so little of you. She thinks that you are nothing. If you lie to someone, it is your way of saying, I view you as less than human. You don't deserve to know the truth. I am going to tell you something that's false to manipulate your behavior. And Kamala Harris, without blinking an eye, told that lie. And attached it to January 6th, by the way. Donald Trump did a pretty good job debunking the January 6th accusations. And when I criticize Donald Trump, by the way, I mean this in a very constructively critical way. I think he did, my grading for him would be a B-. I don't think he bombed. I don't think he did badly. I just have high expectations because I've seen him at his best. I think he can do better. But he had some very good answers January 6th was one of them. He did very well answering that on January 6th, this was his role. These were his words. This is what Nancy Pelosi should have done and didn't do. It was very good. Most people, most Americans at this point understand that January 6th was incited by undercover feds. Even Democrats, especially independents, understand that. He did a good job talking about that. So Kamala Harris tried to trigger him. She told blatant lies, and then she tried to emotionally appeal to women. And the way she did it was so insulting. Tim, I think we have this clip about late-term abortion. This is another one of Kamala's lies, by the way. But listen to how Kamala Harris talked about late-term abortion, mocking it. Mocking it.
You should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
She's lying. She actually laughed at the idea of killing an unborn child, a big, healthy baby, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months pregnant. Like, can we conceptualize this? The CDC, by the way, I know Democrats like to say, oh, this rarely happens. The CDC says that between 13,000 and 30,000 times a year, babies in the 3rd trimester, 7th, 8th, and 9th month are aborted. Think about how many kindergarten classrooms full of children that is. And organizations, left-wing organizations that are sympathetic to pro-abortion views have surveyed women who've gotten late-term abortions, and it's not because of health of the mother. It's not because of fetal abnormalities. It's the same reasons of convenience that women get abortions throughout their entire pregnancies. And Kamala Harris is not only lying about this, her running mate, Tim Walz in Minnesota, vetoed an amendment that would have required that babies who were born alive after botched abortions receive medical care. These babies are now denied medical care when they're born alive, breathing, their heart's beating, laying on a table, injured. Doctors ignore them because Tim Walz allowed that. Kamala Harris supports that. And this is what I would challenge my Christian friends. I understand that Donald Trump is not as pro-life as I am. Maybe he's not as pro-life as you are. He is more pro-life than Kamala Harris, undoubtedly. But this is my challenge. My challenge is to show your friends that video. Because what we see in that video is Kamala Harris refusing to deny that she supports late-term abortions. If you do not support late-term abortion, you are eager to say that. Every politician who is against that, it will rush to assure you, oh, I do not support that. I absolutely do not. Kamala Harris ducked and dodged and deflected. Why? The answer why is because she supports that. And she kept repeating this lie. She said, the vast majority of Americans support a woman's right to choose. No, Kamala, 80% of Americans, including those who identify as pro-choice, want 3rd trimester abortion to be banned. 60% of people in our country, even those who identify as pro-choice, want 2nd trimester abortion to be banned. Kamala Harris is the radical on abortion. And Donald Trump did a good job highlighting that. But again, Kamala Harris is pandering to women. She's trying to use emotion to manipulate women by telling them lies. She went up there and had the gall to say, if you miscarry a baby, one of the most horrendous experiences that can happen to a woman. And I speak from my own personal experience on that. She had the audacity to lie to women and say you might not be able to get health care after that. How dare you frighten women who are in the throes of grief that is so deep it can't even be articulated. She's lying. She could not produce one. And I challenge Kamala Harris, produce one story, one, of a woman who was denied miscarriage care. One story. And I'll debunk it because it's not true. If there was a doctor somewhere who denied a woman miscarriage care, it is gross negligence on his part. It's not true. And she's lying to women about it. Trump should have started his entire debate with his closing statement. If you guys watched the debate long enough, you saw this. This was actually what he should have done from the very beginning. Take a look at this one.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it?
And that should have been the thesis of every single one of his answers, because that was great. I mean, he went on a little tangent there in the middle, but every single answer, he was like, well, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you secure the border? Why didn't you make gas and groceries more affordable? Why didn't you help mitigate violent crime in our cities? Why didn't you stop the war in Ukraine? Why didn't you do everything that you claim that you want to do? Because you had the opportunity to do it. And not only did you neglect to do that, you did the opposite. That's what he should have done the whole time. I liked that closing statement. It seemed to me at the beginning, his very first answer should have been his opening statement, and he skipped that to rebut a lie that she had told. So maybe that was his opening statement. I don't know. All in all, I don't know if the debate is going to make a huge difference or not. And the reason that I say that is not to dismiss the power of debates. I'm not one of those people that thinks that debates don't always make a difference. But think about the last 6 weeks that we've had in this country, what's happened. Donald Trump was the target of an attempted assassination. A couple days after that, Joe Biden, the incumbent president, was the victim of a coup attempt, evidently spearheaded by Kamala Harris and Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. Kamala Harris was then installed as the nominee undemocratically without ever getting a single vote. This all happened in the last 6 weeks. What is going to happen in the next 56 days, 55 days? Who's to say? I do think that Kamala Harris legitimized herself as a presidential candidate to a certain extent. People who are undecided viewing her up there, she didn't just speak in word salads. She didn't just have verbal gaffes or her batty laughter. She actually held herself back from that a little bit. And that was probably good strategy on her part, because people who were like, could I see her as my president, might now look at that stage and say, oh, sure, I could see her as my president. She sounded fine. She didn't sound stupid. I actually never thought she was dumb, and I didn't like that conservatives and Republicans have been saying this for a long time. I think she's diabolical, not dumb. I think that she hides behind that batty demeanor sometimes because she knows the media won't challenge her. It reminded me, actually, during RFK's speech where he announced that he was dropping out of the race, he scolded the mainstream media and he said, you did not single-handedly cause the downfall of our republic, but you could have stopped it, and you didn't. And that's what I think of when I see Kamala Harris's batty laughter or word salads. I think she knows that the mainstream media is not only on her side, they're her propaganda. They're Pravda. They've sold their souls to protect her. And it's like Bernie Sanders says. She doesn't want to talk about policy, not because she doesn't have any. She does have policy. She doesn't want to talk about it because it's so radical that she knows she can't sell it to the American people, so she's trying to trick you. She's trying to trick you into thinking she's just compassionate and empathetic and doesn't want division and doesn't want to denigrate other people, that she wants unity, that she wants well-being. She wants you to fulfill her dreams. But the reality is her policies are the opposite. Her policies cause broken families. Her policies cause young babies in the womb to be killed. Her policies cause chaos in the streets of our cities. She encouraged people to donate to the Minnesota Defense Fund, which bailed out the violent criminals, BLM criminals that were burning down Minneapolis. She wants open borders. She doesn't mind that these terrorists are coming in because they're not going to hurt her. She has Secret Service protection. The way that she lied about Trump is the reason that Donald Trump was shot. That's what Trump should have said. He said he should have looked at her and said, are you trying to get me shot again? Because this kind of rhetoric, painting me as evil, is what caused a crazy person to think that the only recourse against me was to try to murder me. That's what I would have done if I debated Kamala Harris. As you can see, I would have enjoyed that. I actually think what was more significant last night was that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. And you may scoff at this, but hear me out. Taylor Swift has, what is her Instagram? I'm actually going to look up her Instagram following right now to see what her number is, because it's humongous. Humongous might even be a understatement. She has 283 million people who follow her on Instagram. 283 million. What? Like what? Good land. Taylor Swift also has the ear of an extremely valuable demographic. It's not just young girls like 13-year-olds. Taylor Swift, Swifties are like my age people. So we're talking 35-year-old women listen to Taylor Swift. Those are the people that are at her concerts. Yeah, there are younger people than that, but we're the sort of original generation of people who follow Taylor Swift because she's our age. And those are the women that I think Trump was actually trying to appeal to by not being too savage and too based and too right-wing on these issues. We'll talk about that strategy maybe later in the show, maybe another day. It depends on the timing here. But I actually think that's one of the flaws of his debate performance and maybe of his campaign right now is they're trying to appeal to this demographic of women. I guess we're talking about it now. He's trying to appeal to this demographic of women who are fairly ideologically leftist, which means that their minds probably aren't going to be changed on pragmatic issues in a 2-month period of time. This is a much longer process to be like, okay, who hurt you? Why do you feel this way? How do we deprogram that and re-educate you? And I'm specifically, purposely, kind of jokingly using the left's terms here. Out of being leftist and into thinking more rationally and logically. That's a much longer project than simply 8 weeks. What I would do if I were Donald Trump is I would try to get out the vote for young men more than young women, because young men, by and large, I mean, you can look at the studies here, but young men are heavily becoming conservative and Republican because of what wokeism means to them. It's essentially anti-man. And that's why Trump's going on all those podcasts, by the way. You've seen him he was on Theo Vaughn's podcast. He was on, what's that other streamer's name, Tim? Who is it? Oh, he was on the Full Send podcast as well. And Aiden Ross, that's the one I was trying to think of. Aiden Ross, he's going on those podcasts to try to turn out the vote of young men, which is smart because young men vote in lower percentages than young women. So I don't think it's a very smart strategy to try to appeal to young women now. Not that he should discount them. I'm not trying to pull a Mitt Romney 47% moment here. But if young men are already conservative and he just needs to get them out to vote, that's an easier task for the moment than trying to convert leftist women into a totally different ideology and then get them out to vote. One's a one task and the other's 2 tasks. So I thought that was one of the problems with his debate performance is he was trying to speak to an audience that is really not among his base, even though his policies inarguably, and I say this obviously as a woman myself, his policies inarguably benefit women. Leftist policies harm women, but there are a lot of women who have fallen prey to Kamala Harris's and Taylor Swift's stuff. That being said, Taylor Swift has their ear, so if she gets them to turn out to vote, I think that's probably more powerful than the debate and will have more impact on the election than the debate. An interesting note, I don't want to steal this idea. I forget who said this to me last night. But somebody said, it might have even been Glenn actually on the post debate show. He said it's weird that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala tonight. And he was like, does that mean that Kamala was legitimized in her eyes because of her performance? And I read, or it might have been Stu. We can go back and look and see who that was. I don't want to put words in someone's mouth. Someone on the post-debate show said that to me. And I read Taylor Swift's endorsement, and I was like, no, this actually isn't strategic. What would be strategic would be if Kamala had a good debate performance, at least in the eyes of the left and independents. She rode that wave for a little bit, and then if Donald Trump had a win or Kamala started falling in the polls, then you roll out the Taylor Swift endorsement, which would give her a boost of momentum. But if you read Taylor Swift's Instagram post, you'll see it's actually about Taylor. Taylor made it about Taylor. She's like, oh, there was an AI image, a fake image of me going around pretending that I endorsed Donald Trump, so I want to clarify this. And I thought, she's so selfish and so narcissistic that even though her endorsement, if she actually does care about this election, her endorsement would have been more valuable at a different time. She wanted to post it then because of her own image. Okay, Taylor. Okay, I say this as someone who likes Taylor Swift songs. I don't like her feminism. I think it's contradictory, actually, of her entire platform. She sings about young women being feminine, young women seeking love, young women wanting to get married, young women wanting a family, and then goes and advocates for the opposite publicly. It's bananas. She also makes money, by the way, on selling young women the emotion of, and it's a properly ordered emotion of desiring to be a wife and a mother, and then politically advocates for the opposite, for the destruction of families and the destruction of children. Her 3 reasons that she gave for endorsing Kamala Harris are LGBTQIA support for IVF, and support for abortion. Those are her 3 reasons. I think that might be more significant than the debate It remains to be seen if she goes on to campaign for Kamala or not. Okay, Congressman Chip Roy released a report. It's really a bombshell report. It should be getting more news than it is. This report on immigration, it's 36 pages long, and it contains the actual numbers. So you and I can sit here all the time and talk about this invasion that's happening at our southern border. We can talk about how it's an existential threat, which it is, to our country, not only from the security standpoint of the crime in our cities or the terrorists who are coming across, perhaps sleeper cells, we don't really know and probably won't know until they're activated. We can talk about the welfare problem, that it's overwhelming welfare to the point that it's costing us as taxpayers so much money that our welfare resources are strained. It's actually probably kind of like the Cloward Piven strategy intended to break our welfare system so that you can usher in socialism. There's also the assimilation problem. The assimilation problem is basically what we're seeing in Springfield, Ohio, which is if you bring third world migrants into our country without any process of assimilating them into American culture. And just to be clear, for the leftists who are watching the show, hello, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is not about race. This is about culture. For example, in third world countries, they snap the necks of ducks and eat them sometimes. We don't really do that here. And we don't really want to bring that into American culture. And so when I say that the immigration crisis is going to remake our culture, I mean it. If you import the third world here, we will become the third world in culture if we don't have some process of assimilation, which we don't. So to say that immigration is an existential threat is something that we all understand. Many people on the left also understand this. This is not just a left-right issue, but the numbers are sometimes elusive. And what Congressman Chip Roy and his team did, and they did a fabulous job of this, is they put together the numbers. And I'm going to read you a couple of these numbers now. This first number, I'll tell you, I think is a conservative estimate. He says, since President Biden and Vice President Harris took office, over 8.5 million illegal aliens have crossed the southern border, a number greater than the population of 37 states. So sit there. Again, this is to the leftists watching the show, and I'm glad you're here. And I want you to comment in the comments underneath this. Try to refute it, please. If it's wrong, prove it to me. But refute the idea that mass immigration, bringing the number of people greater than the population of 37 states isn't going to change what our country is, the fabric of our nation. Again, not about race, about culture. Of course it is. At least 5.6 million illegal aliens have been released into the interior, Congressman Roy writes, and 1.9 million quote-unquote gotaways have evaded a distracted and exhausted border patrol, meaning over 7 million illegal aliens have entered the U.S. under this administration. That's only in the last 3.5 years. And then he goes on to talk about the consequences of the border invasion. He says fentanyl is pouring across the border in record numbers under this administration. In 2023, fentanyl poisonings killed nearly 75,000 Americans, an average of over 200 deaths a day. Most of this illicit fentanyl is made by Mexican drug cartels using Chinese chemicals and smuggled across the southern border. That's part of the story I think doesn't get enough attention. It's Chinese chemicals that are given to Mexican drug cartels, then that comes across the border and kills our family members. Crime, Congressman Roy says, thousands of illegal aliens entering the U.S. are committing crimes against Americans, including heinous offenses like the murders and assaults of Laken Riley, Kayla Hamilton, Jocelyn Nungary, and hundreds more. Meanwhile, due to Biden-Harris policies, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, has deported fewer criminal aliens. In fiscal year 2022, ICE only removed 44,000 criminal aliens, a 62% decrease from fiscal year 2020, which was also a pandemic year. And there you have that exact number that I wish that Trump had highlighted. When I was president, I deported this number of criminal aliens, and you, when you were vice president, deported a 62% decrease. People don't like that. Congressman Roy says terrorists are streaming across the border in record numbers. In fiscal year 2023, a record-breaking 169 known or suspected terrorists were arrested at the southern border. At least 99 illegal aliens on the terror watch list were released into the U.S. after being apprehended at the southern border. So far in fiscal year 2024, 35,399 Chinese nationals entered the United States through the southern border, surpassing the previous record of 24,314 Chinese nationals in fiscal year 2023. Just for context, in fiscal year 2021, 450 Chinese aliens were encountered at the southern border. That's not even comparable. 450 to 35,000. Trump versus Kamala. Again, that's all you need to know. And then empowerment of the cartels, Congressman Roy writes, this border invasion has made Mexican cartels more profitable by expanding their human smuggling and drug trafficking operations, further exploiting migrants and poisoning Americans. Under the Biden-Harris administration, cartels are making over $13 billion a year off human smuggling alone, subjecting migrants to all forms of abuse. Mexican cartels have joined forces with Chinese crime syndicates to produce fentanyl and traffic it into American communities, which he mentioned earlier. He goes on. I mean, I highly recommend. I'll post this on my X account. You can go to x.com/Liz_Wheeler, and I'll post this entire report. He goes on to talk about the dead, abused, and endangered migrants. Goes on to talk about, I mean, the drug traffickers are essentially raping and assaulting the women that are coming across this border. And yet the feminists and the leftists who claim to care about women, they claim to care about human rights, are silent because they're communists and they want an open border. They want this to happen. They want mass chaos in our country. Some of the headlines. I want to read you some of the headlines. This is just from the past week of migrant crime in our country. Again, I'm going to repeat. This has just happened in the last week. An illegal alien who was arrested for a homicide committed in East Charlotte back in May was mistakenly let go. He was mistakenly let go. Why? Well, because the local police didn't have proper communication with ICE. And so this killer was back on the streets. Someone who shouldn't have been in our country in the first place, by the way, back on our streets. That's in North Carolina. In Maryland, an MS-13 gang member attended a public high school while he was a murder suspect, an active murder suspect in an active investigation, meaning he had already allegedly killed a young woman. And then he was allowed to go back to public school with other young men and women while he was facing trial. And he wasn't even allowed to be in our country in the first place. They were waiting for the DNA to be processed, by the way. It wasn't, they were waiting for his DNA to be, this is how slow the process was. It should take a day for that to come back. It took long enough that he was sent back to school, endangering other people. In Oklahoma, an illegal immigrant was charged in the rape of a child. This illegal alien had been in the country for decades, but had been deported for committing crimes before and re-entered the country thanks to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. In Massachusetts, an illegal alien was arrested for raping another child. This illegal alien was allowed to be here thanks to Biden and Harris. In Alabama, an illegal alien stole the identity of a U.S. citizen and voted in our elections, obtained a U.S. passport. Thought we were told this didn't happen. I thought this was not a risk. I thought illegal aliens, no one wants them to vote in elections. This one did. And yet you don't hear the left talking about it. In Colorado, the police confirmed that these Venezuelan gang members who took over these apartment complexes were in fact also involved in shootings. This is in our country. These are not headlines from third world countries. These are headlines from our communities, our neighborhoods. And it's all thanks to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Again, this is what I would have done if I were Trump. He still has plenty of time to do this. He has plenty of time to go on the offensive. But remember, Kamala Harris is hiding. She's hiding her radical policies. She's being deceptive. She accuses Trump of being divisive and denigrating people, and she's denigrating you. She's denigrating you by mocking you and dismissing you and laughing at you and refusing to tell you the truth. She has such radical policies that even Bernie Sanders says, yeah, she's just trying to be pragmatic because she knows that you won't buy them. If people won't buy your policies, you don't lie to them. You try to persuade them unless you're a Marxist. If you're a Marxist, then you just lie. All right, guys, we have time to react to a couple of the viral videos from the week. I love this segment. I think it's hilarious. I don't actually see these videos before Tim, my producer, chooses them. These are some of the videos that were the most viral on social media this week. So let's watch them together, shall we? Because we want to stay in the loop.
Kiss goodbye. Goodbye. I want all A's.
Okay.
Okay, all A's. And when you get older, what are you going to remember? No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And you know what else? No tattoos. I don't ever want to see tattoos on you.
Now I'm gonna go.
Yeah, first you will have lunch and then you go to school.
Now you can do reading, writing, and arithmetic.
So, is that Barron? He is so cute. So cute. Barron at 4 years old, Tim says. I love that. That's actually one of the things I wish that Donald Trump would do now is show, that's sort of like what I would call reality show footage. It's a peek inside his personal life. It's not really political. It just humanizes him. It shows him as the father, or I think he should show himself as the grandfather that he is. Just let us in, let the American people take a peek into a Sunday afternoon family cookout or something of that nature, a lunch where you're interacting with your grandkids and your kids are all around, your big family. Yeah, you have instability in your past, but your present is so stable. Your kids love you, your grandchildren respect you, you're involved. I adore seeing content like that. I wish he'd make some current stuff.
Most abortions are under the guise of compassion. On who? On who? You're killing a baby, you're tearing him to pieces. You're talking about compassion? On who? Partial birth abortion is to kill a baby in the act of being born. And they fight for it. What are you doing? You see, we're all mixed up today. That's why I'm saying, please, know yourself and know the truth. And use it wisely.
Oh, don't you wish, I miss Mother Angelica. Don't you wish that she had been the moderator of that debate and looked Kamala Harris in the eyes and said those things to the American people about abortion? It brings a tear to my eye. I love that woman.
What happened in 1990? There was no plague that was killing children, that we had to triple the amount of vaccines.
What happened after 1989?
The
Why did they
schedule
warranted 26 more vaccines?
Agreed.
Are all of them absolutely necessary?
Because they want to make money.
Of course.
It's twice as many as anywhere else in 30 countries in the Western world.
But
we give twice as many shots as any of those countries. Why is that?
Well, what are you against? Don't vaccinate for this, but vaccinate for that?
Yes.
I think we have to choose which ones are absolutely necessary.
You should educate yourself. We want to empower parents to educate themselves. Do we need to have the chickenpox? Do we need the hepatitis B shot on the second day of life?
I don't think we can afford to assume that the people who are charged with our public health any longer have our best interest at heart all the time. Parents have to make their own decisions, educated decisions. They have to look at the information.
Space out the vaccines, delay them till after 1, clean out the toxins that are in them. We don't need that many.
Why would a doctor not want to know more about something that could save a life or prevent a disease? I don't understand.
The AAP is financed by the drug companies. Medical schools are financed by the drug companies. This is a huge business. Vaccines are the largest growing division of the pharmaceutical industry. $13 billion.
They control medical schools.
What we're asking is for them to take a loss for the good of our children. That's a tough sell in a boardroom.
Do you remember how controversial that interview was at the time? It was like a firestorm against Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey. And again, so courageous of them to do that. I remember when that actually aired. What was that, back in 2009, I think it was? And they were branded as conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers. And now I would challenge, I bet if we took a poll of the people watching this show right now, I bet 99% of us are like, yeah, that's exactly right. They're totally right, 100%. And they were even back then. All right, guys. Make sure you go to blazetv.com/Liz. Use promo code Liz40. And for a limited time, you can get $40 off your annual subscription. We have so much fun over there. I've been in Dallas at Blaze HQ all week. I was on the Off the Record show, which you guys submitted great questions. It's, of course, a VIP question and answer event. And it was really fun to interact with you. So we'll have to do that again soon. But when we have big events like the debate, it's really, it's not only fun, it is fun, but it's also a good reminder of why we're doing what we do here at the Blaze, which is building this parallel economy, because the mainstream media are corrupt to the core. And when they work hand in glove with a government who wants to shut down conservatives and call us terrorists, we need to have a space where we can talk freely. Otherwise, all of our freedoms are going to be infringed and we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So go over, subscribe, blazetv.com/Liz, and you can use my promo code Liz40. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.